They're not just comics, they're political statements. Throughout the world, no politician has been shielded from cartoonists. Their influence in history has been felt for centuries. In 1754, a political cartoon in a newspaper showed a snake divided into colonies, which would later become the United States. The image of disunity would encourage colonies to unite against Britain during the American Revolution. In 1805, a British caricaturist sketched the British Prime Minister carving up the globe with Napoleon. The general later said the artist did more damage to his reputation than a dozen generals. And it didn't take long for political cartoons to start reflecting the mood of or about a country. In 1953, a Ukrainian-Russian artist created this, called In America. At this restaurant, only one person is served. After the terrorist attacks of 9/11, an image in the San Diego Union Tribune reflected how America felt as that country headed into two wars. Reaction to political cartooning can also cut the other way. After French magazine Charlie Hebdo published satirical images of an Islamic prophet sacrilegious in Islam. The magazine's offices were attacked. 12 people were killed. Cartoons are, of course, now well known to mock politicians and their policies. Back up! Back up! Recent violent arrests and deaths at the hands of American immigration and customs enforcement agents has sparked cartoons like this, depicting Jesus at the hands of an ICE agent. Joining us now are two of Canada's top political cartoonists, both of whom are members of the Order of Canada. Michael de Adder also received the prestigious Herb Block Award, celebrating the legacy of Pulitzer Prize-winning cartoonist Herb Block. Terry Mosher, best known as Aislin, is based in Montreal and is the longest-working political cartoonist in North America. He even had a stamp created in his honor. Now, Terry, before we get into the images that have been hand-drawn, I want to go to a photo that I understand you'd like to share with us. Talk to me about what we're looking at right here.
In the late 1990s, I attended a book signing with Jean Chrétien here in Montreal, all very friendly and so on, and we exchanged books. He signed my book, I signed his book, and that sort of thing. And he looked through my book, and he ran across a couple of cartoons I'd done of him, and he put the book down, and then he leaned over and he strangled me. The old Shawinigan handshake, you know? Yeah. So it was all in fun, but then it hit the internet. Former Prime Minister strangles cartoonist. Anyway, a couple of years later, your dad, Ben Mulroney, attended a book signing event here in Montreal. And he mentioned it. He said, I saw that terrific photo of Jean Chrétien strangling you. I said, yeah, it was caused quite a kerfuffle. He said, looks like a lot of fun. May I?
And of course you obliged.
Yes, of course.
Great.
Well, now I have a collection of these photographs of politicians strangling me in this Shawinigan handshake style. And it makes for quite a collection on my wall.
Oh, it's certainly one of the more unique collections of prime ministerial photos. Of that, I'm absolutely certain. Michael, earlier in the show, we were talking about trade and tariffs. Let's take a look at some of your cartoons that you've created, and then we'll chat about how you came up with the ideas. Okay, so like how do you come up with the ideas under pressure? I mean, timing is everything. You've got to be in the moment, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it happens. I just, I've been doing this long enough that I know not to panic at first when, or most days anyways. I don't know. It's just, I have confidence in my ability to shake the cobwebs out, and I know that some idea will come. It may not be good or bad, but it'll be an idea at least.
Well, the one specifically of the neighbor's dog is taking a dump on our lawn. That's
right.
That is some pretty. You have to anticipate that there are going to be rocky roads ahead when you do that.
Well, this is the one cartoon where I know exactly where I got the idea. That came on a day where I didn't have an idea, and I decided, just sitting there trying to bang my head against the table wasn't working. So I took the dog for a walk, and I don't know what was up with my dog, but my dog was just starting to do its business on the same neighbor's lawn every day.
Yeah.
And
there you go.
A cartoon idea was born.
Terry, speaking of pressure, one of your most famous cartoons came out way back in 1976 on Quebec election night. What's the story behind this one, and how did people react?
Yeah, 50 years ago. It was the famous moment in Canadian history. The Parti Québécois was elected here in Quebec, the first separatist government, and people were kind of in shock. I was in my studio at the time, and I walked into the editorial board where the people were the editorial writers were really dumbfounded that this was actually happening. I went back to the studio and I thought, oh, that's an idea. So I had René Lévesque pointing out at the reader saying, okay, everybody take a Valium. In other words, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And it ended up being okay. But anyway, it turned into quite a classic cartoon, sort of summing up the situation on that particular day. And it became part of the language too. People say, okay, take a Valium, like relax, take it easy.
Wait, is that where it came from? Is that where it came from? Take a Valium? You coined that term?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
My goodness. I didn't know that. You learn something new every day. Thank you for sharing that. Terry, big broad question. What makes a good political cartoon?
Well, that one in particular, it depends on circumstances. I think that probably Michael will agree with me that you need a huge event, preferably, that people will remember for a period of time. And if you're reflecting on that and can come up with a really good effort, that's a big part of it. A minor cabinetist or shuffling this, that, or the other is not a huge event. But say something like in 1980, when the business in Iran back I didn't know how to handle that with Khomeini and the whole gang, so I simply drew a little beaver pissing on him and on his robe, and that again is a cartoon that's remembered to sum up. Yeah. What we do is we sum stuff up, hopefully in a comical or thoughtful way, and if it applies to a particular situation, we've done our job.
Michael, I want to take you back to 2019 because you had one of those moments. You had one of those visuals of a father and daughter who had passed away. They had died trying to cross the Rio Grande, getting into the United States. That you took that photo and made it the inspiration for your cartoon of Donald Trump, asking if he could play through on his golf course, his golf cart. You want to make people laugh. You want to make people think. You want to push a little bit. You probably did all of those things, but the reaction was you were let go from your job. So what was different from this one than from other ones where you got close to the line?
I'm not sure I exactly went over the line because I got a lot of attention for it, like a positive attention when the cartoon came out. It was just my employer didn't like the cartoon.
So they saw a line that you crossed.
They saw a line that I crossed. They saw a line where they didn't want this particular cartoon in the paper. And Terry's right. Like the cartoon is kind of dependent on how big the story is. You can have a great cartoon, it can be very popular. But if you have a great cartoon on a great story, it elevates it. The irony of this cartoon is I sort of became the story after I was let go. I mean, must have been a slow news day the next day because all of a sudden I found myself on CNN and various news programs across the world.
What makes it successful?
Well, does it make people talk? Does it make people think? How funny is it? And this one's not funny, but Trump is drawn funnily. Yeah. But that's the only aspect of this cartoon that's actually really funny, when you look at the picture of,
Well, much like school shootings, that's some pretty somber material. So how do you find the funny in the sad?
Well, you often elevate the sad. I find that cartoonists don't just peddle in funny, they peddle in sadness, anger, outrage, all the emotions. So sometimes your cartoon is not funny whatsoever.
Yeah.
You're angry, the cartoon is angry. Yeah. You're sad, the cartoon is sad.
Terry, what are your thoughts on making light of or trying to find the funny in a tragedy?
We're not always looking for the funny. Michael's absolutely right. Satire can be quite vicious, and we're satirists basically. And if we're angry about something, we will draw that. And if it happens to be amusing, fine. But people get the wrong idea that a cartoonist is sort of supposed to be like Blondie or Dagwood or something like that. It's not. A good political cartoonist falls into the realm of terrific satire when we get it right.
Well, but it can be, you could be forgiven if you get it wrong in one image. I mean, how difficult is it to boil down complex ideas, complex dynamics into one image? I mean, I'm looking right now at the Carney Mr. Fix-It image. That could be interpreted in all sorts of different ways.
Well, and rightly so, because remember this was shortly after he took charge of things, and it was clear, he would talk about all kinds of possibilities of what he'd be doing and that sort of thing. Sort of media claimed to be Mr. Fix-It, but at the same time, I blurred the background just to get the main point. Here he is, Mr.
Yeah.
Fix-It, with a belt filled with tools and saws and this, that, and the other. And by blending it, then remember the average person looks at a cartoon for maybe 7 or 8 seconds, and you have to keep that in mind. So you can't do the old-fashioned stuff of sticking stuff in a corner or putting a label on a tie or this, that, or the other. With the internet now, people are impatient, and you have to get a message out there very quickly. Even if it's complicated, simplify it. And it's a bit of an art form. You were wondering before, too, about the business of how do we measure popularity. It's very easy these days because of the internet. I mean, have a lot, as well, I think Michael's in the same situation where a lot more people see me online than they do in the actual newspaper. And some days you might get a couple of hundred hits, but there are days when it just balloons. I did a cartoon during the Trump debate with Biden that got 2 million hits overnight just because you hit the nail on that. But you can measure the popularity so easily that way.
You know, we're living in an era where more and more I hear this notion of, people have the right to not be offended, which is not a real right. But I've heard stand-up comics say that they are more careful when they are experimenting with material. Do you find, and I'll start with you, Terry, and then we'll come to you, Michael. Do you find that you are getting more pushback, that there's more offense taken to your material today than in the past?
Probably by the newspaper owners. But it doesn't bother as much anymore because if they kill a cartoon, I just put it online. Because I have a contract with my newspaper that says they can either print it or not. But if they don't, I still own it. And so I can throw it out there. And so if they're offended, I've probably hit something right on that, right a nail on right on the head.
Michael, what about you?
I don't worry about it. I just draw what I want to draw when I want to draw it. I let the editors decide whether they're going to print it or not. So it's
and if they say no, do you still retain?
I put it on Substack. I do exactly what Terry does. I put it on Substack and let the chips fall where they may. And sometimes they fall exactly where the editors said they would, but I enjoy that. I like the pushback. Yeah. I don't spend much time on Blue Sky where I get nothing but accolades. I go to where they hate me.
Where the friction is.
I like the friction. Yeah. I think you're doing your job. When you get nothing but likes, I don't feel you're doing your job. When you get likes and hates almost equally, I think that's a successful cartoon.
Are there any subjects that you just won't touch?
Not really. There are subjects I might not want to touch on a certain day, but I'm kind of not afraid of very many subjects. Yeah.
Yeah.
Terry, what about you? Anything that is just off limits for you?
I have to make a judgment call if something is too personal. But that's changed a lot with Trump, because it used to be you were respectful if a politician got into some difficulty, maybe a divorce, that was none of my business. but Trump has changed the whole texture of satire. I mean, anything goes because he'll say anything at all. The best cartoon I've ever seen on Donald Trump appeared in the New Yorker. And it was a cartoonist clearly in his studio doing a drawing. And his wife is leaning through the door saying, "That cartoon idea you had on Donald Trump this morning, forget it. He just did it."
Well, it's been a real honor to sit here with the both of you. You know, as somebody who's followed politics from a particular vantage point for years, you've added a richness and a depth to my understanding. Terry, if you were here, although I'm not a prime minister, I'd strangle you and say thank you.
Yeah, well, we'll get that photo sometime when I'm in Ottawa. How would that be?
All right.
Terry, do you want me to strangle him?
Thanks so much, guys.